everyone's journey is different and anything is truly possible when you see things in a different way, when you have this like mindset of abundance versus like lack.
Sheena Yap, hello and welcome to Jannelle. Thank you so much for making time for us. I know you're very busy.
Hi, Jannelle. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here, to connect with you again, and to chat about confidence. I'm just really excited and I'm really grateful.
But first of all, huge congratulations. You're coming off two very prestigious awards, a bronze medal for Best Interview Style from Asian Podcast Network. Congratulations. Woohoo! And
Thank
also
you.
Best Community Outreach from New American Podcasters Association. Congratulations, Sheena. So when you first started the podcast in 2015, what were your thoughts? What was the driving force behind it?
So for me, it was really having a support system for Asian women when it comes to confidence issues. I know we all go through them, and sometimes we feel like we're the only ones going through them. And back then, I couldn't find any resources where Asian women can turn to and, just listen to a story or have some support system. And that was one of the reasons why I created it. Another one was representation is Asian American women, Asian Canadian women were so underrepresented. I mean, I live in Toronto, one of the most multicultural cities in the world, and yet we're still lacking a lot of representation. And so I just knew that if I wanted representation, it had to start with me.
Right. We're talking about the Tao of Self Confidence, which Sheena has started in 2015. It's a podcast. And from then, she has interviewed over 800 women on the subject of self confidence. And I like that you mentioned that already, Sheena, because you wanted for it to be a support system as well, talking about how women lose, view, and gain self confidence, correct?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned from interviewing more than 800 women on the subject of self confidence?
Oh my gosh, where do I start? One of the things that I really learned was, you can figure everything out along the way. And as women, we are truly smart beings. We are competent beings. It's just that how we see ourselves is what stops us, right? Thinking we're not good enough, going through imposter syndrome. And those are, a lot of women go through those things. And I want you to realize you're more than competent to do it. And it's okay to make mistakes and fail along the way because they're all feedback. And I always say, sometimes your greatest mistakes leads you to your greatest opportunities. I mean, one huge mistake I made was when I first started this podcast, I wanted to name it The Stripper because my tagline was to strip all the limiting beliefs away. And when I actually, showcased that name to a bunch of other podcasters in this group, they were like, I don't think that's going to be the right thing. I think it's going to give people the wrong idea. And so I actually had to circle back, like sit down and figure out a name again that was clear instead of clever. And that's how the Tao of Self-Confidence came. Another one is, don't let your limitations stop you from your greatness. And a great example is I interviewed this one woman who is the first licensed armless pilot. So she flies a plane with her feet. And, just hearing her story was amazing. Like, here's a woman who does everything with her feet and she's living life to the fullest without any limitations stopping her. And I remember how she said the moment she realized her true self was when she just walked into the bus without any prosthetics in her arms. And like, she just felt the most authentic that she was at that time. The third one was, your past is not your future. Like, you can decide your destiny at any given moment. And I recently interviewed this Korean lady who was in jail for 3 years, who was a drug user, a drug seller. And she realized, one day she just looked in the mirror and she realized, things has to change and it has to start with me. And she just, went there and went for it, did everything she could to change to who she is today. Now she's a self-confidence coach. She's even given advice to Dwayne Johnson's reality show. She was in John Legend's music video. I mean, anything is truly possible when you make that decision. And, these are some of the biggest things I've learned.
One thing that I like about you is in the beginning, when you said you talked to your other podcasters and you shared with them the name that you want for your podcast, and you actually listened.
Yeah, I mean, I had to like drop my ego down and realize, okay, something's wrong with this. If 9 out of 10 people said that this isn't working, they have to go back and do it. I know as Asian people, pride is like a huge thing, but sometimes we need to just let it go and realize, okay, these people are helping you. They just want the best interest for you. And so if they're telling you something's not working, then there's a reason why. And so that was a huge lesson for me because, sometimes I feel like I know everything, but I don't.
And exactly, that's what a confident woman should look like. A confident woman is not threatened by suggestions from others, right? And a confident woman is willing to listen.
If you have a huge purpose and you really want to create that change, and you got to go ahead and have the confidence to do it, even if you fumble along the way.
Because you've interviewed a lot of confident women. So, what does a confident woman look like? What should a confident woman look like?
Well, for me, I think what a confident woman looks like is just being her authentic self, right? Learning to be vulnerable, having the courage to ask for help, especially, as Asian women, we're so like prone to not asking for help. I'm guilty of this as well. I feel like I could do everything. And I realized that by not asking for help, it actually delayed my own success, right? Or my own journey or my own destiny. And so it's really important to ask for help, whether it's to join a women's group, hire a coach, things like that. Like, especially now, we're in this crazy pandemic and like our mental health is like heightened more than ever. And so it's really like now's the time to seek help, right? Seek professional services if that's something that can help you out. And I'm always talking about mental health because it's such a taboo in the Asian community. We really have to bring awareness to it so that people can realize like it's okay if you're going through this because we all go through it and we're all human.
See, that's why best community outreach, because you're also helping boost other women's confidence, right? I remember when I spoke to you, when you interviewed me in your podcast, we talked about confidence. And I remember talking about how confidence, self confidence in women also changes as you go through the different stages in life, right? I remember talking to you about being confident that I was hosting and producing a daily talk show for Filipinos here in the US. But then I didn't realize that I'd be more confident as a mom. So things like that. But let's talk about confidence in being an Asian woman in dating. And you mentioned pandemic. It must be difficult because I speak to other Asian women. And one of the things that causes insecurity and anxiety is, say, for example, oh, you're this age and you're still not married.
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of that from my titas. I mean, when I'm in the Philippines, I get all kinds of things. Like they tell me to go to church so that God can bless me with a husband. They send me prayer books saying maybe this might help you find a husband. And, sometimes it can get to you, but you have to realize like, everyone's journey is different. And, love it's never too late to find love, right? I mean, a great example is the newly Vice President Kamala Harris, right? She met the love of her life at the age of 49. And
Mhm.
so anything is truly possible when you see things in a different way, when you have this mindset of mindset of abundance versus like lack. And I know sometimes it's not easy, trust me. I mean, there's days where I'm like, "Oh my god, maybe I'm going to be an old maid." But then I realize like, I can't think that way. Like I have to change the way I think and see things. And if it's not in my cards, it's fine. It's not the end of the world. But we have to realize it starts with loving ourselves first, learning to what we tolerate and not tolerate, because there's so many people on social media who have this picture perfect life, but sometimes we never know what's behind closed doors. And living in the Philippines, I know like there's so many stories that nobody talks about, right? Husband controlling finances, some of them are in the closet. Like there's so many things that nobody talks about, right? And so I want people to realize what you see on social media isn't always the absolute truth. And as long as you know that what you're doing is creating a positive impact, you're on your own journey trying to find yourself and know what you tolerate and just learning to love yourself more, everything else will fall into place. It really starts with loving yourself more. And when I mean love yourself more, it's just the good, the bad, the ugly, right? Because you can't always just love the good parts of you. You got to love the ugly parts, right? Because without it, like, how do you expect other people to fully love you for who you are and have that unconditional love?
I love that. We talk about social media a lot, especially in this day and age where people compare what they see from others to the inside. So I always say that don't compare your insides to other people's outsides, because what we see on social media are what people project on their outside. Like you said, we don't know what's going on their insides, whereas we know what's going on in our insides. And so we can't use that as a gauge, right? But then at the same time, I also like what you said about setting boundaries, right? Figure out for yourself what you will allow and not allow. And that's setting boundaries, and that helps with self confidence. Self love, we just talked about self-love on one of our digital conversations called Spotlights here on Jannelle. It's being self-full. It's not being selfish, right? Because we have to fill our cups first. But so those are your tips for a person to, in general, to be more confident. But then on the other side of that, what causes people to lose self-confidence in your experience, in your interviews with these people?
For sure. I think it's how we're brought up too as Asian women. We've been told to just do as you're told, never make a noise, stay in your shell, and just do that for the rest of your life, right? Never rock the boat, because anything that happens outside of that is considered shameful, or you're like crazy, or it's going to tarnish the family name. And that's a huge thing in Asian culture, right? The status, the family name. And because of that, we feel like we can't go out there and make our own decisions, or we're not good enough, or we just see that we're not worthy to go out there and do our own thing. And that really hurts us as a whole, right? I mean, for generations and generations, we've been doing this one way of living, realizing times have changed, people have changed, environment has changed. And we have to learn to change as well, right? And it starts with awareness. If we're not aware of some of the things that we've gone through, then we're never going to know why we're feeling the way we're feeling. Like, for the longest time, I always thought I was a huge failure. And I realized it was because when I went to school in the Philippines, I failed kindergarten. I failed kindergarten for coloring outside the lines. And because of that, I thought I was always a failure. I mean, I had to move to another school, redo kindergarten all over again. And I realized, like, yeah, I didn't realize, like, I was never meant to like be in a box. I was always meant to like color outside the lines. And if I didn't do like self-development work or just work on myself, I wouldn't have picked this up, right? And instead I would have been thinking, I'm such a failure, I suck, I'm not good enough, what's wrong with me? And so these are some of the things I think some women like lose confidence, right? And also what other people think of them. That's a huge thing, because just because someone says something about you is not the absolute truth. And I remember when I used to work a job, I was actually looking for another job because I just wanted something different, a job where I can make more money as well, because that's what we do, right? We want to look for a job to make more money. And I remember an old coworker told me that, I was telling him about, I wanted to have another job, or look for another job, and he's like, why? You already make more than enough as a woman. That really hit me, because I thought that was the absolute truth. And I realized, and I thought, okay, maybe he's right. Maybe this is the best that I can do. And I should just be grateful and just stay at this job, not realizing like what he said is not actually the absolute truth. It was just his opinion. Right. And when you can tell the difference between a fact and an opinion, like, then you can go out there and move forward. What he said doesn't mean it's your truth. It's just what he thinks. What he thinks doesn't matter. If you're capable enough to go out there and do it, go ahead and do it. It's not easy. There's days where you want to cry, but it's worth it in the end.
Which brings me to my question. I mean, since 2015, so this podcast is about 5 years old now, and I know because I've been interviewed by you, and you're very efficient with scheduling and all that, and very clear. But were there times when you had wanted to give up?
Oh yeah, all the time. There's days where I want to throw this laptop against the wall, or like yeah, there's days where I want to quit, thinking like, is this even worth it? Like, is this even worth doing everything? But when I get a message from a listener saying how it's really helped them, then I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it's all about helping other people. When you can help one person, it makes a huge difference, because you never know where that one person can go, or how many people they can help.
And that's why it's very important as well. And it adds to self confidence, right? When we know our purpose.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that gives us the push. So with that said, what's on the horizon for you? Where do you plan to take the Tao of Self Confidence?
Oh my gosh, I'm always trying to find other different platforms to elevate Asian women's voices. And some of the things that we're doing is we have books coming out. It's a Women Who Boss Up book series. And one of the books that's coming out, or that I'll be featured in, is called Asian Women Who Boss Up and Women of Color Who Boss Up. And these are huge, because as Asians, a lot of people think we're not part of the Women of Color box because we don't have a color. And it's like, are you serious? Like, especially now with the pandemic, there's been a huge surge of like Asian hate crimes, right? And we really have to learn to work together to help rise women up, because the more we can help women rise up, the more we can have more confident women to be the leaders that they're meant to be, or entrepreneurs that they're meant to be. Because even till this day, stats are still very low. I mean, I think in America, there's only like 18% of women who are CEOs, or in Fortune 500 companies, only 37 are women CEOs that run Fortune 500 companies. And this is like, and that's women as a whole. So imagine like women of color and Asian women, it's still a lot less. And so this is just more than a book, right? It's showing people what's possible. And we really want to get the word out there. We're doing virtual summits, online shows, like everything to get that word out there, because nobody will know your story unless you're visible. You got to be visible. And it's scary, I know, because to me, I'd rather just like binge on K-drama on Netflix, right? Or watch the Tagalog movies than like put myself out there, because it is scary and like you never know what's going to happen. But if you have a huge purpose and you really want to create that change, and you got to go ahead and have the confidence to do it, even if you fumble along the way.
I love all that. I think every time that you speak and open your mouth, there's like nuggets that come out. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us in such a short time. But now, if people were to forget everything that you said, everything that you shared, and they can only take away one thing, what's the one thing that you would like for our viewers to take with them after this interview?
I think the one thing is to just know that you're worthy, and keep telling yourself that until you feel it, because our brain can't really tell the difference between what's fake and real. But if you keep inputting it in your head, like it's gonna start to believe that you're worthy. So that's one thing I want people to realize, like they are worthy to go out there and forge their own path, or create a business, or be a political leader. Whatever it is that you want, anything's possible. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It's going to suck sometimes, and there's days where you want to ugly cry or even quit. But when you have a huge purpose, you're going to keep moving forward.
Love that. Thank you so much, Sheena. And we hope this isn't the last time. And God bless you on your journey. We'll be cheering for you. And please feel free to come back anytime you have anything new or anything that you'd like to share with us.